have no more questions. I have one more question, Representative Moser. Gotcha. And then I have another. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of concerns just about the research piece of this, and I do appreciate what you've done with this bill. I think we're getting closer to just appropriately looking at this as I don't want to call it a research project, but it's certainly a popular national social experiment right now, and I think it's a medical experiment because this isn't being put through the FDA approval process, which all other natural products and plants are. I think without serious questions being answered, we're not really sure that we're doing no harm. I think that we don't have clear answers to the indications. We don't clearly know how to dose this medication. It's not a medication yet, but I'm sure that there are medicinal properties, and I think that we just need a little bit more clarity. I've spoken with lots of physicians about this who have concerns about really more about contraindications, and I guess a lot of what we hear are from oncologists and end-of-life situations, and certainly in some respects, I think that should be allowed, but we don't know how this interacts with chemotherapy, for example. So that's just one example of a lot of questions. I could keep us here all day. I won't do that, but I think that we need to focus more on research. That's what the AMA says. It's what all of the medical groups that I talk to and am affiliated with say. And to your point about legislating medical practice, doctors don't like that, and I'm not sure that legislators should really be in the business of voting on medications. Are there other medications that we should vote on, Dr. Block?
Are there other medications we should vote on?
Yeah.
Sorry, but I don't understand.
Well,
the question.
This is a plant, and it's being called a medication without going through the usual process. I'm just wondering, are there other medications and other treatments that legislators should prescribe?
I made great point of expressing the word medicalization in my presentation, which means that we don't have all the answers. Myself as a clinician regard this purely as having one more arrow in my quiver from which to draw from to derive the optimal patient outcome. Everything in medicine, as an anesthesiologist, I deal with medicines far more dangerous than cannabis, including fentanyl, you've probably heard a lot about. We do so in a balanced risk reduction sensibility with the sensibility of harm mitigation. We're not there to make things more dangerous, just the opposite. The reality of it is there are other medications that are other Schedule I substances, and the difference in many of those, including LSD, I might add, is that certain medications we don't know how they work. In this case, cannabis is different because in the mid-1990s, how it works was discovered. The timing of how the first state came on board after that, the timing of it expresses the relevance of the understanding of this medicine compared to others in that context. And with your respect to your comment about experiments, that's exactly what states do. In this case, with it being federally legal and with citizen patient mandates from other states, the states themselves are these proving grounds. Is it entirely experimental? I wouldn't think so at this point at all, because we do know how it works. But there is a learning curve. That's why I used the medicalization term. And that process is meant to continue with certain constraints that everybody may not like, but to continue independent of a federal designation that right now has stayed stagnant for the many years, almost 25, since the discovery of how this works, has been frustrating for many citizen patients. And they've asked their own states to act on their behalf, partly through the experimental process, but the federal government will have their eyes on Kentucky and more recent states adopting measures, because we're finally finding our way through that medicalization process with a better safety and efficacy understanding and hopefully due process.
Mr. Chairman, I want to answer that question if I might. The answer is yes. Opioids are a medicine, and 3 years ago we passed a bill that limited opioids in the prescription. We restricted the doctor's practice And to my knowledge, Representative Moser, you were the sponsor of that bill.
All right. We good?
If I could just comment quickly,
Yes.
I intend to continue my work with the federal delegation to lift any restrictions to provide more opportunity for research waivers. I think that's the direction that we should head, and you know, I don't disagree. Like I said, that there are probably medicinal qualities. I know there are, but we need to appropriately dose and know what those indications are and the contraindications. Thank you.
And I'll